Hello and welcome to this very special episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. I'm in conversation with Vaishali Kasare. She's the co-founder at Sonder Connect. She's also the co-founder of the India Amateur Runners Trust. And it's always a pleasure to speak with women who've done something different in their space. And you've done something very different. I will come to talking about the movie in just a bit, Vaishali. But let's start by talking about Sonder Connect. You're in the process where you're showcasing 20 different female entrepreneurs who've set up different businesses. Talk us through that.
Thank you, Sunanda. Always a pleasure talking to you. At Sonder Connect, our vision, me and my co-founders, what we really wanted to do is when we came across so many different interesting stories of women, we felt as experienced women in the corporate workforce, seasoned women, having spent a couple of decades in the industry, we felt it was our responsibility to help the next generation of women in multiple ways. And the one piece that really struck us when we read this survey, about 140 countries participated in it, and it said that when it comes to female entrepreneurship, India is in the bottom 3, which is just marginally above Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we felt like when we talk about India being, the fastest growing economies in the world, so much growth, so much opportunity, then why is female entrepreneurship really lagging? And that was the idea behind Sonder Connect. And the meaning of the word Sonder means the realization that everyone has a story. And it is our humble attempt to get women together in this country and mentor them, teach them, help them along the way as to how do they get their unique idea or story out, not just in terms of pitching, but help them in their business plans. Is their idea viable? Can they go to an MVP? And how do we do that? We sign up or we request the most powerful men and women in the industry to come on board with our nonprofit and help give their time, their effort, and their commitment to helping and walking these women through their journeys. So that's a humble start. We have shortlisted 14 women. We are in the process of shortlisting them down to 2. So these 14 will get mentoring and 2 will actually get sponsorship to go to the Valley, participate in Black Box and raise funding for their companies.
Talking about some very interesting statistics in terms of the number of female entrepreneurs in India compared with some of our global peers. Why is it so low?
There are multiple dimensions. I think globally itself, the money going into women-led businesses is perhaps a fraction of what goes into, businesses where men are co-founders. But coming back to why it happens in India, I think there are multiple layers to the problem. One is, who are the guys funding? Who are the people funding? It's mostly, I hate to say this, but it is an old boys network. Somebody puts money in it, and then their batchmates, their colleagues, everybody puts money into it, right? First mover advantage, you have a band of men. Who are the people sitting on the panel who are giving out the funding? You'll barely find less than 6% are women. And therefore, very naturally, there is an unconscious bias where the funding just doesn't go to the women. Women also get asked very awkward questions in this country. Oh, you're going to get married. I'm not sure you're going to be committed. So the moment the woman walks into the room, she has to also play this. There's a classic double bind. Is she aggressive enough to do a good business? But is she too aggressive that she's going to piss off the men? So I think there are various layers to why it's happening, and our attempt is to break some of that in the country.
And has that started happening? I know that you are doing, you're pushing these women entrepreneurs to come out to the fore, but do you think there's enough happening and enough sort of knowledge and understanding of why we need, more women entrepreneurs, why we need more women on boards of companies?
I think there is enough knowledge in the system. I wouldn't say that people don't know the value of having more women-led businesses. The fact that women-led businesses have 55% better ROE is a proven fact. There is reams and reams of historical data to prove that when you invest money in women-led businesses, or there's at least one woman founder, they perform better on all risk parameters, and they perform better in terms of return on asset, return on equity. When you look at boards, the 30% rule, the tipping point is 30%, that when you have 3 out of 10 women on boards, they will perform exceptionally better than a board with no women. So I think there's enough data, people have enough knowledge. Idea to action that, I think sometimes we fall, not sometimes, I think we are still falling ridiculously short, because although people have internalized that it's all good, but the ability to commit to that change is, I'm still seeing very, very slow progress. It's just not adequate.
Let's talk about something that impacts both sexes. And if there is one piece of advice that you would like to give entrepreneurs and viewers of our show, what would that be?
Everyone has a great idea. I think innovation is all around us. We all have that aha moment saying, I think I want to do this, which is fantastic, because I think you need to live your life with passionate ideas. Otherwise, you don't live a complete life. But the ability to translate that idea into action is what differentiates successful entrepreneurs and not successful entrepreneurs. So my advice to both men and women would be that, it's fantastic, take that idea, but, change or innovation or doing something brilliant is 1% ideation and 99% execution. So make sure that you have a good plan, think about it before you chuck everything away. Talk to your family, talk to mentors, talk to sponsors, and figure out whether that is the idea that you want to work on or not. So be a little cautious before, taking the jump.
So the Leaders of Tomorrow is a daily show, and 2 days in a week we have a call-in show. And the majority number of questions that come in, entrepreneurs want to know, how do I get funded? Why am I not finding, the kind of funding or the finance that I want? So what is the advice you would have for our viewers in terms of how to go about finding funding? How to make yourself more investment ready?
I think most of the people that I meet, some of them genuinely have great business plans, they have great ideas. Some of them have just not thought through it. So I would say go back to the basics. When you are going to pitch your idea, first of all, you have to figure out, are you taking an idea which already exists and there are 3 other people, and is your idea an also ran? And there may be space for that, because there are some ideas where the market is huge and your product or your service or your idea will have due market share, but there are some which, you believe that idea is good, but there's a lot you need to do. There's market research that goes in, there's a minimum viable product. You need to be able to prove at that stage that you're ready for funding, and there are different stages. There is the bootstrapped startup, there is early stage funding, there is pre-series A, there is series A, there is series B. So you have to go through that entire journey, and the basic question you need to ask yourself is, rip apart your business plan. I think you become so siloed because you have looked at it all the time. You need to get perspective from different people to be able to articulate and present it. I think the mistake people make is go very quickly and try and socialize their plan without giving a deep thought in planning. So that's where I think organizations like ourselves, which can help you define your business plan, run it through a couple of people before you're actually ready to face off with the investors.
I want to talk about valuations, and we're talking at a point when some of the largest e-com companies are facing questions on valuations. Do you think that's a cause of concern for your smaller startups, or do you think that the industry is finally reaching a very realistic, level of valuation?
I think it would work both ways. My sense is with some of the larger, players where valuations have been written down quarter on quarter for the last 2 quarters. My sense is, yes, some of them genuinely, there is a case for a situation may have been reached where there was overvaluation, and this is just correction and revaluation on more realistic perspective. I don't think the smaller entrepreneurs are going to suffer because the bigger players are being written down in value. If you have a powerful idea, I mean, every day you open the paper, you read about the various startups that are getting funding by some powerful name. Like you have, Ratan Tata is like every other week you see an investment. Nandan Nilekani, every other week you see a personal investment. So there is enough space because people want to believe and in the investment that they're doing. So I would be cautious in saying that, I don't think the small entrepreneurs have really taken a beat.
I want to talk about government policy, and while the government has announced Startup India, Digital India, Skill India, The feedback that we get from MSMEs, SMEs and entrepreneurs is that they yet to see the benefits of that really trickling down. Do you agree with that? And if yes, what more in your opinion is really required before the benefits of these various government programs, the regulatory environment actually starts working for the startup community?
Yeah, I think I was pleased to see that at least there is an intent by the government in the last 4 months to Startup India, Digital India, invest in it, the mandates that have come down. It's, they have to start somewhere, and I think we should give them a little bit of time for it to allow to trickle down. If we didn't do anything for the last 5 years, when the entire startup ecosystem started to buzz in 2011 and 12, so let's give it a little bit of time. I think let's not be very harsh.
A lot of the entrepreneurs tell us that just like the government has set up, say for example the Mudra Bank, or there's a specific startup fund under SIDBI, there should be a separate regulatory environment, whether it's legal, whether it's say mentorship which is offered to these startups and entrepreneurs. Would you agree with that?
I would largely tend to say yes, that having this separate environment, regulatory, so on, so ecosystem would definitely benefit, but we need to go in baby steps. From a country that has been asleep in terms of policy making, under the last government, I think every day you see the government's commitment on various sectors. I'm sure, it can be tabled and it can be done, but let's do it in steps. I don't think the government can do everything overnight.
All right, let's take a very quick break on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow, but don't go anywhere. We're continuing this conversation talking about women entrepreneurs and also crowdfunding. Welcome back. You're with us here on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, and we're talking with someone who's very closely associated with the field of entrepreneurship and particularly women entrepreneurs, something that's close to our heart. What role does mentorship and mentoring really play? And I know that's an issue very close to your heart, both at Sonder Connect and otherwise. So what role does mentoring play? And do you think that mentoring for women and for men is different?
When it comes to entrepreneurship, mentoring both in the corporate workforce context and then you look at the entrepreneur context. I think in the entrepreneurial world, especially for women, mentoring can be make or break. Women have different mental DNA. By nature, we are always underconfident of our capabilities to pull off anything. If a man has a business plan, even if he's 60% okay, he'll say, I've got this rocking plan, guys. I'm just going to go kill it. Whereas a woman will have all the details and, presentation and her numbers backwards. And even if she's 99% ready, in her mind, she will feel like she's just 60% ready. That's one. Second is women don't generally open up very easily. So that's where mentoring can play a role to help them, give them the confidence, connect them with the right people. Women historically are under-networked, whether it's entrepreneurship or in the workforce. So helping them open the doors, join the dots, make the connections, meet people is not something that they would do intuitively. Some women would, but on an average, I would say the woman would not, would be very hesitant to reach out to people. So I think that's where mentoring can just open the doors a little wider so they can walk in, mentally confident of themselves and their ability. And that's where I think men can play a really, really big role in helping them think differently about their pitches and helping them raise their level of confidence to bounce those ideas off them, because they will then start imbibing some of that aura of confidence and aggression. Aggression is good.
So as a woman mentor, what are some of the, or let's say, what are the top 2 or 3 tips or tricks that you would give women startups or women entrepreneurs?
I think the most important point that I tell everyone, men and women, but focusing on women, is fake it till you make it. Don't be so underconfident of your capabilities. Your plan will have just as much due diligence, if not more, compared to many of your male colleagues. So this is specifically for women. Second is, you have to work hard at it. it's not a dream, you know, I've got this idea and everything else will happen. Like I said, 1% is idea and 99% is execution. So the same advice that I give everyone, the devil is in the detail, the devil is in the execution, the devil is in the market research, your plan, your iterations, your teams, your building up of the company. And don't look at entrepreneurship as short term. I'm going to set it up and then I'm going to sell it and unlock value. Are you thinking going concern? Am I building a company which is going to outlive me, or am I just doing it to sell? If you're just doing it to sell and exit, then I'm afraid you've got a very short term perspective, and I'm not going to help you.
Okay, so you are at the very top in terms of your corporate role at Deloitte, but we don't see enough women. And we were talking about women on boards of companies and how, you know, we don't see enough women on boards of companies. What do you think is really going to change that?
We can't wait for linear growth. I mean, if you wait for the pace at which the change is happening, or women are staying in the middle management and progressing to senior management, to reach any sense of equality in the board, it's going to take us 150 years. If we need to break that linearity, I think personally I'm a big proponent of he for she, until the majority or the dominant group really participates, believes in and invests in the minority, which in this case is the women, change is not going to happen. I'm an avid proponent of sponsorship. I think I have been a recipient, and I've had people who I sponsor. Sponsorship is very powerful. It's way beyond mentoring. It means having a skin in the game, participating in the success of your candidate by jumping into the deep end of the pool and not sitting on the sidelines and giving advice. If we need to change corporate India, we need men, powerful, successful, having a voice at the table, having a seat at the table, who have the ability to influence women's careers, to be there as their sponsors.
As part of the effort and the program at Sonder Connect, are there any typical areas or trends that you see that are coming out? And is this not necessarily in the technology or the online space? Because we have a lot of MSMEs and SMEs who write to us saying we're in the manufacturing space, but we don't hear enough commentary or chatter around that.
I think that's a very good point. I think when you looked at the evolution of women entrepreneurs, I think a couple of years back you would only find them in food, fashion, clothes. But increasingly, I mean, I am so pleased to see that we find them in areas like technology. We find them in areas like healthcare. We find them in deep areas like machine learning. We find them in areas like cancer research. We find them in fascinating areas. Although the numbers are small, but I can slowly see the needle moving, and women moving way beyond just I won't say cliched, but typically you would associate a woman would stick to her comfort zone, but the breadth and width of ideas coming out that I've seen in the last 6 months has been fascinating. It's small, but I can see the change happening.
I want to talk about something that you're very passionate about as well, and this is fitness. You're an avid marathoner, and before I come to talk about just running and you're in a movie as well, what role, in your opinion, does physical health and physical fitness have in the corporate world?
Fitness in general, whether it is in your corporate life or your personal life, I think I don't even know where to begin. Honestly, if I were to just summarize it, I'd say I treat fitness is good for the soul. It's food for the soul. So it sounds cliched that a healthy mind lives in a healthy body, but I genuinely believe it does. In my own case, I'm a prime example that if I feel fit, if I feel good, my brain feels sharp, and if my brain is sharp, it reflects in my work. So I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'd say it's my top 2 priorities in life.
Talk to us about the movie.
So, I want to give you a little bit of perspective about the non-profit that I and my friends co-founded, called India Amateur Runners Trust. The trust is primarily focused on trying to raise funding and help economically challenged runners. So essentially people who are really good at running but don't have the time or the money to devote to it. So we help them by providing them financial assistance, by giving them kits, by giving them vitamins, proteins, so on and so forth, so that they can focus on their training and hopefully break into the national levels, one day go to the Olympics. As a part of India Amateur Runners Trust, we also felt that running was not understood well in the country. So we made our first movie, which was crowdfunded in 2014, called 2 Feet to Fly, where we showcase stories of 5 exceptional people. I won't call them exceptional runners, but exceptional people, and how running changed their lives, whether it was physical illness, whether it was someone who was smoking, whether it was a lady who had health problems, a lady who had an autistic child, how just running was meditative and therapeutic, and it changed their lives. And that movie inspired thousands of people to just take up running. We felt, and again, how do I combine my passion for fitness and running with my eagerness to help women progress. So combined the two and said, let's now crowdfund India's first movie, which is going to inspire women specifically to take up running. And so we started working on this idea last year. We crowdfunded most of it. We are on our last leg of crowdfunding. So please, if you want to help us, write to us. We are going to showcase about 8 stories of women and how running changed their lives. And they're stories of very normal, everyday women who have families, who have jobs, who have commitments, how they have made fitness their top 2 or 3 priorities in their life. We have interviewed men, their partners, their husbands, their parents, their children, and try to hear from them what they believe is the role of running for women. So it's going to be an exceptional movie. It's going to be the first of its kind in India, and I really hope millions and millions of women go out there and take to fitness as a result of this movie.
Okay, a quick last word then. Just talk to us about crowdfunding. You've crowdfunded the movie, like you said. Is that an idea that's really caught on in India? Because in the West, a lot of people have bought into the idea. But does it work in India?
I think it's still early days. I see millions being raised, on crowdfunding platforms. When I look at the US especially, I think in India it's still not where it needs to be. There is potential, of course, to grow. Our crowdfunding was source of, was on social media, was word of mouth, was friends and family, passionate runners. I would have loved for us to raise a lot more. I think there is potential, but it's still at a very, very nascent stage. But I think I would link that actually to the idea of giving. I think philanthropy itself in this country, or putting money behind something you're passionate about, is still not where it needs to be. It's still early days.
I wish you all the very best then for the movie.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for speaking with us.
My pleasure.